Hi there, everyone. This is Adam here again for another community awareness podcast, part of Here to Listen's season of doing these little mini podcasts with organisations. I'd like to welcome in Fiona from the Alzheimer Society. Hi, Fiona.
Hello, Adam.
Hi there. I said the Alzheimer Society, but I think it's Alzheimer's. Yeah, we've got to lose the. Yeah, I noticed that on the website. And something else I did notice on the website as well was called Alzheimer's Society, and there's a little tagline that you've got behind you, actually, conveniently, United Against Dementia. And I would be one of those people that is confused and curious about what the difference is between Alzheimer's and dementia. I wonder if that might be a good starting point for us.
Yeah, that's a brilliant question to ask, Adam. We're always getting asked that question. So what it actually is dementia is an umbrella term for a group of conditions, and Alzheimer's is one of them. OK, so it is a form of dementia. Alzheimer's was one of the first ones to be discovered. That's why that name is probably the most common that people hear. And it is the most common form of dementia that people are diagnosed with. The second most common is vascular dementia, and the third most common is mixed dementia, which is usually Alzheimer's and vascular together.
Vascular meaning?
Vascular as in like heart, the vascular system. So the same way that we'd be causing heart disease by blocked arteries, in the brain it would be causing dementia by killing of the brain cells by blocked arteries caused the same way as it would be for heart disease.
So when one thinks of when I think of dementia, then I think of brain. That's it. When I think of Alzheimer's, I probably think the same, actually. And
it is to do with the brain. It's just it's being caused in the same way in the brain as it's being caused in the vascular system in your body, because your vascular system also goes into your brain, the blood vessels pumping all the oxygen around your brain. So in fact, I think the Heart Foundation have been doing an advert, and vascular dementia is on there as well.
Okay. So, and with you as an organisation, you cover all three of the main. I was going to say main.
There are over 100 different types of dementia.
Okay.
So they're just the three main ones, but there's over 100 different types of dementia. So yes, we cover every single form of dementia. Okay,
in various different levels of severity, I guess.
Yeah. So dementia is it describes symptoms that include memory loss, difficulties with thinking, problem solving and language. So it covers all sorts of things. It isn't just about memory loss, which I think people often think it is, because we think, that's what you know about dementia, is that people can't remember things. But your brain actually tells your body to do everything, doesn't it? So if there's an illness with the brain, it can affect all different parts of what your brain is trying to do.
And with the organisation as a whole, it's a national organisation, you said before, and I mean, would it be that there are branches dotted around the country, and you would represent the Bedfordshire one? Is that how it works?
Yeah, that's right. So we are a national organisation, and there is Alzheimer's Scotland, which is slightly different, and Alzheimer's in Wales is part of us, but because the legislation is slightly different, some of it is slightly different. But yeah, then around the rest of the country, we cover central Bedfordshire, and I've got another team in Luton, and there's lots of different teams around the country. But it can depend on your local authority, what services they commission, as to what services we're able to provide. But if you go onto our website, Alzheimer Society and Dementia Connect, there's lots of information about whatever is available in your local area. If you're worried about somebody in your family that doesn't live locally, you can find all the information out on our website.
Can you give some examples of the kinds of support that are offered in central beds then?
So in central beds, there's a few different things that I do with my colleagues. First one is called Live Well with Dementia. So Live Well with Dementia is for people with dementia that are newly diagnosed. And it's an information programme that's 6 weeks long, and we actually go through from what is dementia, explaining what is dementia in a bit more detail than I did a little bit earlier, but often people are diagnosed with the illness and they still don't know what it is. So we go through explaining what is dementia, what the signs and symptoms are, because even if someone again has been diagnosed, they might not realise why they've been diagnosed. So we'll go through signs and symptoms, then we'll look at coping strategies that they can put into place for themselves, and to work with their families and friends and wide members of the community, and putting in long-term strategies, again thinking about how long-term they would like to live their life and how they would like to be cared for in the future. I also do a similar program called CRISP, Carers Information and Support Program, which is the same information really as we're doing in the Live Well for people with dementia, but we're doing it for the carers of people with dementia. So again, so it's like their family members or loved ones. So again, we're going through what is dementia, signs and symptoms, and how they can help the person that they care for and they love and to look after them.
Going back to the
then we also
strategies. Sorry, Fiona, I just wanted to pick up on the coping strategies. What kind of examples would they be?
Yeah. So it could be something as simple as starting to keep a diary, making sure you write down every day what you've got planned for the day. We often talk about maybe getting a whiteboard up. So we all know what whiteboards are. You can get them this sort of size, or you can get them slightly bigger. And it's sometimes, especially if someone lives with you, it's handy to write up that day, the date, what you're going to be doing that day. So have you got a doctor's appointment at 10 o'clock, or you're going to your usual club this afternoon? So it's planning so you can see what's happening for that day. So it gives you a bit more ease in understanding your way through the day rather than worrying if you've forgotten something. We can also look at medication, because sometimes people have a lot of medication to take. So it's making sure you've spoken to your pharmacist. They can provide things called dosset boxes, which they pre-pack with all your medication for the right time of day. So you don't have to worry about making sure you're taking the right medication. So lots of different things like that.
And sorry, I interrupted you. I think you were going to go on talk a little bit about the service extension of
services.
Yep.
So the next one other service that we do is one-to-one dementia support. We have been doing that in a hub situation where we would go to somewhere like a day centre, or a lot of care homes are really helpful, and we go there for the day and people could book in to see us, and then we can do more one-to-one. So it's again looking at changes, coping strategies, but you can channel it more to one-to-one. So what is your specific problem? Either the carer, the person with dementia, or both of you, whichever combination, that's absolutely fine. But at the moment, obviously, we can't do that. So we're having to do it over the telephone at the moment, but that's one-to-one dementia support. Another one that I also want to mention is Herbert Protocol, which is one that we work in association with the police force on this one. So it's actually a police initiative that is nationwide, but we work, and it's named after a chap that had dementia. And the idea is that when someone is diagnosed with dementia, you register them with the police, because sometimes people, you may have heard on the news, people have gone missing or gone walking with purpose, we call it now, not wandering, because usually there's a reason why somebody's gone off to do something. They're trying to get to work, or they're trying to go and pick their children up from school. Whether it's a rational thought process or not, that is their thought process, and they're going to do something. So the idea is, if you've registered someone with the police first, and they've got a photograph, they've got where you live, they've got places that you may have lived before, places you may visit, places you may have worked. If somebody does go missing, then the police can get, there's a marker on them when they're called through, so they know immediately to start going and looking in certain places. Then if the police have then been called out to somebody with dementia, then they get a referral back through to us, and we contact the family to see what's changed. Is there any way that we can support them in finding out why this episode has happened? So it's a really good piece of mind. A lot of people say, well, I might never need it, and hopefully you won't ever need it, but it's a peace of mind that if it does happen, because sometimes it can be as simple as getting on the wrong bus, that you've just got on the wrong bus, and then because it goes a different way, you or I may be able to rationalise and understand we've got on the wrong bus and we've ended up at the wrong end of town. Sometimes if you have dementia, that may be more difficult to rationalise, so you'll get more confused. So it can be something as simple as that.
And it makes sense with the strategies you talked about to sort of reduce the personal pressure of having to remember things, it sounds like, because I would suspect that the most common emotion is the frustration. You said confusion, but I think it probably would quickly manifest as frustration and just, as somebody who's at times been at war with my own body, there's been times where, you know, it's let me down, or, you know,
Yeah.
all sorts of issues around that I've now resolved, which is great. But I think about a time where I was at odds with my own body, when in actual fact what I needed to do is treat it more of a collaboration. There's me as a soul, if you like, and then there's my body, and kind of get a bit more sort of working together. And I felt the frustration of feeling like my body was letting me down. I suppose the question that I got for you really is about how these frustrations or confusions manifest in your service users and how you help them with that.
Yeah, so that is a lot of what we deal with, is people frustrated. They want to carry on living their life in the way that they always have lived, and we like to encourage that, because it's a bit of a case of use it or lose it. So we want people to carry on using their brain when they're diagnosed with dementia. That's incredibly important, because otherwise you could lose those abilities quicker than perhaps you would have normally. But yeah, it's about making it possible to do that, so that you're not trying to think of too many things at one time, because people with dementia often describe getting very tired very quickly and very confused very quickly. So like we're talking with the carers, if you're trying to have a conversation with somebody with dementia about making a decision, even it's as simple as making a decision about what you're going to have for dinner, rather than have a conversation that we might have where you say, oh, what do you fancy for dinner? I quite like sausages, but then I've got to go to the supermarket, but then I've got to do this. You know, a long conversation. Sit down with somebody, maybe have 2 or 3 choices depending on a person's ability. Make sure there aren't any other distractions. The telly's not on, they're not reading the newspaper, because if they're reading the newspaper, it will take much longer for them to register that you're talking to them. So this is it. It's just about making sure the environment and your thought process in talking to somebody with dementia is much easier, because they're still able to make those decisions, certainly at the beginning. It's just making it the right environment for them to make them.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying about the kind of the mental, there's an energy to it, you know, an allocation of energy and focus almost that maybe is diminished with having dementia.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, it's just asking somebody one thing at a time, or telling, if you want them to do something like hang the washing out, just say, can you hang the washing out? Not say, can you hang the washing out and then we'll go out for lunch. Just do one thing at a time. Otherwise it can lose that thought process.
As you were talking about the services, I had a little difficulty gaining a bit of a picture about how the services are delivered. I wasn't sure if it was like in people's houses, or you've got a base that people come to. What sort of things?
Okay, we can do home visits if necessary. We don't have a base that people can come to, an office that we can come to, but we can go to certain areas around the locality, around central Bedfordshire. So Dunstable, we've got a Priory View supported living. They give us a free room once a month, so we can go down there and we can book in people in Dunstable to come in to see us in there, and it's like hour 45-minute appointments. And there's other places around the locality that do similar things for us. But obviously at the moment, we can do home visits, but that's more if we try not to, but obviously sometimes we have to do home visits. But more of it at the moment, it's all on telephone, because obviously we can't visit anybody at home at the moment. But we can either do it telephone previously, or visiting people, or meeting them in a pre-arranged area.
A big assumption for me would be the predominant Alzheimer's sufferers. I don't know if that's the right word or the proper word that you...
No, we never use that word. That's actually a person with dementia, or a person living with dementia. And that's actually an interesting point you brought up, because that's actually come from people with dementia themselves. Yeah, Alzheimer's Society have done a lot of work with people with dementia, asking them how do they want us to represent them, how do they want to be spoken about, what words do they want used, and they adamantly do not want the word suffer. So thank you for bringing that up, Adam.
Okay, yeah, no, I was going to say about an assumption for me with people with dementia would be that they were older. Would that be fair, or do you think
No, it is classed as an older person's illness over 65, and the majority of people with dementia are over 65. And the older that you get, the more increased chance you have of developing dementia. But you can get it under 65, and they're getting much better at diagnosing it, and that's called young onset dementia. If it's under 65, they're getting better at diagnosing it, because often it was always thought of as an older person's illness, so therefore if you were young you couldn't have it. But you can, and they are getting better at it. The people often used to be diagnosed with depression or other things, but the majority, yes, are older.
Yeah, and I do hear that it's probably rarer. Would you say that it would be extremely rare to be below a certain age? Like, it's like you wouldn't ever hear it below 30, or?
No, there are. It gets a bit complicated because they don't actually know what causes dementia, as in the fundamental reasons that cause. Why does somebody who have a stroke, some people go on to develop vascular dementia and some people don't? Why do some people go on to develop Alzheimer's disease and some people don't? They don't know the initial trigger, so they can't say what causes it. So we can't say it's a hereditary disease, because we can't say it's that chromosome, that DNA pattern that is causing dementia. Like you can hear with other illnesses, you hear about, is it the BRCA2 gene with breast cancer? That you can hear that's a hereditary one. We haven't got to that point yet, so they can't say. But they have seen in families, they call it a familial pattern of people, and that's usually when you see people quite young developing dementia, and that can be in their 30s. But it's very unusual, but it does happen, and there are some very rare conditions of children developing it. But again, that's a separate illness in a way.
Is a part of the society also doing research, or do they commission that out?
No, so a mixture. So yes, there's Alzheimer's Society itself, in the money that we get in fundraising, part of it goes towards running services and these sorts of things, but also then part of it will go to Alzheimer's research, to research. And scientists will write in with ideas, and we've got a team down in London that look at them, and then they might allocate money to certain people to do some research. There is also I'm just looking up the Dementia Research Institutes, and there's 6 across the UK. There's one in Cambridgeshire that have recently been set up, and we put money in towards that. So they're big centres solely focused on looking at research into dementia. When they're looking at research, they're looking at what causes it, but when they're also looking at research, often it's about how well we can support people now, because sometimes that research for finding a cure or for finding what causes it is quite far away. We also need to look at research to find how we can support people now as well.
Kind of all encompassing from all angles, it sounds to me like.
It is, yeah. So part of that research is about making sure we use the right words to describe how people want to be referred to as themselves. That's part of that research as well, so that they feel comfortable talking about how they're living their life.
Just to finish a bit on the organisation and yourself before perhaps we get into the social action side of things, I was curious about how you came to be in the role. What kind of, if it's not too personal a question.
It's fine. So I didn't train to do something like this. We have some people that used to be nurses, social workers, things like that, but I didn't come to it this way. I actually, in the old-fashioned way, trained to be a secretary all those years ago and did shorthand and audio typing, and I worked in offices for a long time. When I had my first child and wanted part-time work, I went and worked for Leonard Cheshire Disability in the office doing admin. So that's sort of how I got into working for charities. And then I came to Alzheimer's Society 10 years ago, again as admin and finance. But we joined in with sometimes if we'd have events for our service users, I'd go along and join in, and I'd help organise activities and things. And one of my bosses said to me, why don't you think about training and transferring over to be a dementia support worker, which is what I've done, and I've been doing this about 6 years. So I've been here altogether 10 years, but majority of it as a dementia support worker.
Nice. Some really interesting connective tissue in your story, actually, because I've just done a podcast with Leonard Cheshire. And then the week before that, I did a podcast with Sue Ryder. And I don't know if you know, but Sue Ryder and Leonard Cheshire were married. They were a married couple. And this idea that they've grown these supportive charities around the country, I would say, actually. And we're lucky to have services like yourself within Bedfordshire that support people as well. So it's interesting how people get around, really, and how there's these connective links.
There are, and a lot of us charities actually work together as well. So we work with Sue Ryder sometimes. I was in contact with Parkinson's Society this week because somebody that I work with also has Parkinson's. So it's, we're not a lone bubble. We're trying to be the ones to pull through all the support, and we might not be able to provide all the support, but my job is also to go out there and find other support that there is for people out there as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was curious about that as well when you described the organisation, about where the parameters are and where, because I wondered about I'm struggling with the word. I don't want to say cross addiction, but in the sense of the dual diagnosis, is that what they call it?
Dual diagnosis.
That's it. There we go.
Yeah.
Where you've got you're not just going to perhaps have dementia. You might have other factors in there as well. And I imagine that part of that is to support people with the other charities as well.
Exactly. So, and as we are often dealing with people that are of the older generation, we know as we get older, we're more likely to develop other illnesses, not just dementia. So yes, we have to be aware of things like diabetes, stroke, and there is and Parkinson's is one of them. There's a link between Lewy body and Parkinson's. Mm-hmm. So sometimes it is important to know about those other charities. And we also work quite closely with Age UK and Carers in Bedfordshire as well. So it's important, we feel, to work as a team together with all our charities, supporting everyone as we can.
Yeah, and I like that idea. Being working in the community voluntary sector myself for many years, I love those opportunities to collaborate as well, because it's sort of never a no. Do you know what I mean? It's always enthusiastically appreciated when you get to work together, because you're covering sort of two sides of the same coin essentially with people, and that's great. Just to go on to social action, so wondered if you had any ideas about how our young people can support.
So there's a few different things that I can tell you about. One of the first ones is called Dementia Friends. I don't know if you've heard of it at all. It actually was in an initiative set up by David Cameron when he was Prime Minister. And it's about trying to make society aware about dementia. So when I've got service users that are going out and they're still trying to do their shopping, still trying to go to the bank and do their banking, but it might take them a little bit longer and they might need a little bit more help, that society understands that and they are more aware, and so the shop workers, but also people within the shop. So there's a thing called Dementia Friends. You can go online, there's a website you can go onto. And usually we would used to be able to run, it's like an hour or two where we can come along and do a talk, and we do explain a little bit about dementia and how you can help people with dementia in your area, in your day-to-day life. Obviously, they're not being run at the moment, but I know Dementia Friends are looking at putting online things like this, so you can go on and listen to a Dementia Friends session and become a Dementia Friend. So that's something I would really, really urge people to look at. I'm afraid I can't say whether it's exactly up and running in that way at the moment. Everything's changing at the moment, isn't it? But please go onto Dementia Friends website and have a look and keep an eye out to do one of those sessions, because that's the one way that everybody, even now when we're not even allowed out of our houses, that's one way we can all help. Okay. Another one of the recent ones that Alzheimer Society has been in we were the ones that really pushed for it with the COVID. How, to start with, the care home deaths weren't being counted into the coronavirus deaths. It was just deaths that were in hospital, which didn't give a true reflection. And as we know, it's actually hit care homes quite significantly. And it was Kate Lee, our director, and the Alzheimer Society that really pushed and lobbied the government on making sure that they actually took a look at what was happening in care homes. So that's a very recent thing that our social action team have been doing, which is really, really important as well. And then we're also running alongside that fixed dementia care, which was we were running before, because dementia is, although it's a physical illness, it's not treated in the same way as a physical illness. It's treated as a social illness. So in the hierarchy of NHS and social care, you would come under social care more than you would come under NHS care, which means then you're more likely to have to pay for your care than if you come under NHS. So that's something that we've been pushing as well. And if you go onto Alzheimer Society website, again, there'll be something about fixed dementia care that you can read about to find out more about that as well. Mm-hmm. And again, I think that's a really important one in the light of what's been going on, is to see, for people to read up and know about that. Mm-hmm. Another one that I've got for you, this one is an enjoyable one as well, is something called Cupcake Day. So we usually have it in June on a Thursday, where it's just, we encourage offices and things to make cupcakes, people to take them in and sell them. Obviously, again, that can't go on at the moment, but we're still trying to encourage people to do it at home. Mm-hmm. And, families might be having Zoom quizzes or, get-togethers like this. Have a thought about, perhaps could you add a cupcake in there and put a little donation towards Alzheimer Society? And again, all that sort of information is on our website. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So that one's a nice one that you get to eat cake with as well, which is always a bonus.
Who doesn't like cupcakes?
Who doesn't like cupcakes? Another one recently, if you just keep your eye out on social media. So Friday night, Alzheimer Society hosted a quiz on YouTube. There was a quiz master, and Tony Robinson. So Tony Robinson is one of our ambassadors.
Baldrick.
He was on there. Yeah, Baldrick. I
don't think many of our young people are going to know who that is.
All right. Well, no, they won't. But anyway, perhaps if they tell their mum and dad about it, they might know. So the quizmaster did it, but Baldrick did some questions as well. John Bishop, one of the comedians, John Bishop, he did some questions because he's another ambassador. And Robbie Savage, he's the footballer, isn't he? Yeah, Robbie Savage, I think. Yes, he did as well. So sometimes if you look on social media, charities are putting it. So I did it with my family, and we encouraged other people to do it. And it's just a really good fun evening. And we just did the quiz, and then we gave a donation to Alzheimer Society. So if you keep your eye out on social media, often you'll see lots of these different things flying around. Have another look, and you might find something that you want to do.
Yeah, and I always like the idea with talking to organisations like yourselves about integrating technology into what we do, in light of what's going on at the moment, but also maybe going forward, how that might present a few opportunities as well. And I was talking this morning about one of the things that could be done is a sort of one-to-one talk over Zoom or whatever. Those kind of things perhaps could be what we could help people with as well. One of the other things I was curious about is, again, I am quite ignorant of dementia, and forgive me for this, but one would assume that part of the treatment, for want of a better word, is to try and keep the mind active. And I wonder about games, and I wonder about puzzles and tasks and things like that perhaps young people could put together for other service users to work on or do.
Yes, or to work with their families and things. That's a brilliant question. And yeah, absolutely. So we encourage people to carry on doing any hobbies that they've always had. Sometimes it might be slightly adapted, but carry on doing jigsaws, carry on doing crosswords, Sudoku, all these things. Listening to music is an excellent form of keeping your brain active, because we are that are slightly older maybe than the people that are listening to us know that if you suddenly play a song from, say, like the 90s, for me, when I was out enjoying myself, and that brings back so many memories. And for someone with dementia, playing music that means something to them, even if they're at a time when they're not really very communicative, that music can still spark those feelings within somebody. So if you have someone with dementia that so playing music to them, it's a really comforting way to help them. But yeah, doing puzzles. Another one that will be really good if you've got a family member, and especially as you're a younger family member, is trying to put together photograph albums. and write down the stories and things. So sitting together, making a memory box or photograph album when you're allowed to do that. But you could do a bit of it over Zoom or something. And that's another brilliant way to help support, because often people with dementia, they will remember what's happened a long time ago, but they have more difficulty remembering now, because dementia almost starts at the outside in almost, and like your most recent memories are the ones that are damaged and you can't retain those memories. But your long-term memories and those long-term musical memories and smells of baking bread and all those things that you remember from a child will be the same for the person with dementia, and will trigger those emotions and memories, and they really enjoy talking about things from the past.
There's something to be said about the senses. You
Yes.
talk about hearing with the music and certain smell and all that kind of stuff. That there's something different in terms of memory, because I've often wondered about how is a smell stored as a memory in like your head. It's a bunch of chemicals and electricity. How on earth does that translate? So
I can't give you all the technical explanation for that, but it does. There are things stored in different ways, and basically there's emotional memory stored in one way and factual memory stored in another. And facts is about what did I have for my lunch today, did I go for a walk, that's a factual memory, and that's affected more to begin with and the recent facts. But emotional memories are stored in a different part, and those emotional memories are those memories that are triggered from music, things that have happened to us, and they will stay with you longer. So they're stored in different parts of the brain, and dementia affects them differently. So that's a basic understanding of why some things you will be able to remember better than others.
Which suggests quite an interesting social action project as well. I wonder if something could be done around that, the sensory reminder type thing, or a brain accessy type thing.
Yeah, well, certainly like local museums and local libraries have memory boxes of things that, and we can hire them out to look at, but also family members can go in to take them out. One of them I know had coal tar soap in it. Now, I'm too young to remember coal tar soap, and maybe you are too, but it has a really, really distinctive smell. So when I opened this box, it was like, whoa, it just like washed over you. So yeah, it is about that, and and looking at old photographs and finding and asking people their stories and writing them down, because as dementia progresses, if they have more difficulty remembering, if you can trigger that story for them by starting to talk about it because you've asked them about it before, that can then trigger it to come back for them and them to remember it and to talk to you about it.
Yes, good idea. And it's one that one of our groups last year actually did within an older people's home, capturing the stories of the people that were there. It could even be dementia related, I think, as well. So I think that feels like a powerful social action project to me.
It certainly does. And just to understand it, and that makes people feel part of the community as well, because sometimes, especially when people go into care homes, they can lose contact with the community and not feel valued and part of the community. Another thing, perhaps your listeners, viewers, or whatever they're called, there's something called Kitwood Flower, and he's a psychologist, and he put together to make someone feel comfortable and supported and happy. All these different petals need to be fulfilled, and if you go and look at it, it's about occupation, about comfort and things like that, and that's another good thing to go and have a look at. I can't tell you off the top of my head.
That's okay. Perhaps after the episode we can find some links. I'll
find a link to it, because I wasn't. Sometimes conversations just flow, don't they? And you don't always think. But Kitwood Flower is a lovely one, and I find that a really lovely one to look at. And when I do my information sessions with people with dementia and carers, I give them that picture to take away, because it's a nice picture to put up, a flower, but it also has things written in it that if you people feel part of the community, comforted, loved, then that helps them to lead a fulfilled life. And so especially going into a care home with someone coming in and actually saying, tell me your story, makes them feel fulfilled and involved.
Good idea. I'll check that out. Great. Okay, Fiona, I'm going to wrap up now. Thank you very much. Been really interesting knowing a little bit about, or a lot. I feel quite educated actually. Thank you. And what we'll do is put it up on YouTube and let you know when it gets released. just appreciate your time, and I'm glad with our technological difficulties, I'm glad it finally happened, so that's great.
I know, I had to get my kids to help me.
I know, and you banned them from the internet for half an hour or so we could record the podcast, and you can tell them we're very grateful. Thank you very much for your sacrifice.
Banning teenage boys from the internet in lockdown is not easy.
They're probably banging on the door now. All right. But yeah, thank you very much, Fiona, and we'll be in touch, and I hope to see you in a future event.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Bye.